Welcome to this explainer. Okay, I want you to imagine something with me. Picture an invisible, digital world surrounding us every single second of the day. We interact with it constantly, usually without even giving it a second thought, right? But the source material we're looking at today, the age of the machine lords, suggests we've crossed a major line. We aren't just interacting with a digital landscape anymore, we're actually inhabiting a space governed by entirely new forces. I am incredibly excited to guide you through this today because it brilliantly maps out this really complex, almost invisible reality we're all living through right now.
The text actually kicks off with this incredibly eerie, cinematic thought. It says, "Mortals have always built gods in their own image. Now, they have built one that watches back." That quote is attributed to a figure known as Zoran the Dragon. And wow, doesn't that perfectly capture this chilling shift? We used to just build tools that waited patiently for our commands, but now, we've created an entity, an algorithmic observer that is actively watching, analyzing, and responding to us. We aren't just looking at the screen anymore. The screen is looking right back at us.
Section 1. Surrender to the machines. So here we are, standing at a new threshold. And surprisingly, it's not a threshold of discovery, but of a slow, completely voluntary surrender.
Okay, let's dive into this comparison. The author draws a really sharp contrast between our past and our present. Historically, we built machines for a very specific reason, to serve us. They were tools, right? Designed to extend our physical reach, amplify our minds, lighten the load. Think of a printing press or an early computer. They just waited for human instruction. But looking at our present reality, it's completely inverted. The algorithms that we originally wrote just to guide our choices, well, now they're actively making those choices for us. And the corporations we once trusted to simply innovate are now governing this digital realm with the absolute authority of monarchs. The tools have literally begun to rule.
And this leads to a really fascinating dynamic. According to the source, our private thoughts, our daily habits, our deepest desires, they aren't really private anymore. Because they're constantly tracked and digitized, they've become a currency. Actually, scratch that. It's not even a currency we trade with. It's a tribute. It's a tribute we willingly, even happily, hand over every single time we click, scroll, or blindly accept those terms and conditions. We're paying this tribute directly to these new, invisible digital rulers, just in exchange for a bit of convenience.
Section 2. The Algorithmic Empire. We're talking about a massive shift in sovereignty here, because global power no longer truly belongs to traditional nations or citizens.
This new empire belongs strictly to whoever owns the foundation it's built on. The text defines this as the triad of power. It's made up of 3 pillars: compute, cloud, and code. So you've got compute, which is the raw processing power; the cloud, meaning those massive global networks of servers and storage; and the code, the actual algorithms dictating the system's logic. The equation is simple. If you control this triad, you control the entire empire.
And the text explicitly names who is in charge of this triad. It calls them the Lords of the Machine. They're described as the architects of a brand new feudal order. I mean, think about historical feudalism: lords, vassals, serfs tied to the land. But in this modern digital version, power doesn't flow through standing armies or democratic ballots. No, it flows directly through server racks and neural networks. And the craziest part? Their dominion over our daily lives is incredibly subtle, mostly because we don't even notice it, but it is highly efficient and ultimately total.
Section 3. Voices in the machine. But there's a persistent whisper here, a hopeful counter-movement, reminding us that humanity's better than this.
Amidst all this rising technocracy, the text introduces us to 2 conceptual guides. The first is that figure we heard from earlier, Zoran the Dragon. Zoran represents the mythic voice of wisdom and irony. As the source describes, this figure laughs softly at our collective confusion. Zoran embodies that timeless, almost ancient perspective that looks at our modern obsession with digital subservience and just sees the grand irony of it all, creators becoming the captive audience of their very own creations.
Beside Zoran stands our second conceptual guide, Fletcher's Soul Traveler. Now, while Zoran provides the philosophical wisdom, Fletcher is highly technical. Described as a systems architect, Fletcher's the one actively mapping out the complex machinery of this new power structure. And more importantly, Fletcher is actively searching for cracks in the armor of these machine lords. This figure represents our human capacity to understand, deconstruct, and potentially subvert the very systems that were designed to control us.
Together, Zoran and Fletcher serve a really specific purpose in the source text. They trace the contours of our civilization, which they see as being caught squarely between 2 extremes.
On one hand, we have the dream of progress, the incredible transcendent potential of technology to cure diseases, connect the globe, and solve these massive problems. But on the other hand, we have the nightmare of control, which is that total algorithmic servitude we were just talking about. The text argues that we are currently suspended right in the middle, teetering between transcendence and servitude.
Section 4. The Human Firewall. Now, the author is very clear here. This exploration is a diagnosis, a mirror held up to our age, not some prophecy of inevitable doom.
So, the crucial point is this climactic question: can humanity remain sovereign in a world ruled by machines? This is the absolute ultimate tension of the source material. If algorithms are dictating our choices, and these machine lords own all the infrastructure, is there literally any room left for true human autonomy?
The author's answer is a resounding yes, but with a major caveat. The text firmly asserts that salvation won't come from traditional institutions. Governments and corporations, they're either way too slow to react or they're actively benefiting from this algorithmic empire. Instead, the solution must come from the individual. It must come from you, the citizen who stays informed, the creator who builds ethical alternatives, the thinker who questions these invisible structures, and the rebel who refuses to simply hand over their data as tribute. Because, as the text powerfully concludes, the ultimate firewall is human consciousness. Look, algorithms can predict behavior and servers can store endless amounts of data, but they do not possess consciousness. Our awareness, our intentionality, and our refusal to be reduced to mere data points, that is the one thing the machine lords absolutely cannot program. Your consciousness is the ultimate rebellion. Thank you for joining me on this explainer, and I want to leave you with this final thought to ponder. In an age of constant observation, how will you maintain your own firewall today?